My guest today is Judge Wayne Mack. Judge Wayne Mack, thank you so much for joining me today on the show. I really appreciate it. I know I was supposed to be at your office and I couldn't because of certain problems that I end up having. So thank you so much for joining me on this virtual world we call Zoom. And
Yeah,
thank you so much.
thank you. I appreciate you having me. I'm honored. I've watched several of your podcasts, and I just thank you for allowing me a privilege to do this.
Thank you so much. It's our new norm now. You know what they say. They say necessity is a mother of all inventions. So I
Yeah,
guess we needed it during COVID, and here we are. Now we enjoying this convenience, and we can still see each other face to face, and have a good social interaction right here. Judge Rain Mack, I know you've been a civil servant for 31 years in Montgomery County, mostly. Is it all in Montgomery County or mostly in Montgomery County?
all in Montgomery County. I've got 31 years of service with the county. Next month it'll be
Wow.
31 years. Yeah,
Well, good. Happy future anniversary to you. So
thank
you
you.
started cleaning offices and were a nighttime janitor. Tell
Yes,
us a little
sir.
bit about that. Tell us, how did you become a janitor to Your Honor?
Well, I moved to Conroe, Texas, to work, take a non-paid internship working in the youth department of a church, and to support that, I went to work for the county as a night custodian, and so I um, I worked there as a custodian. And my dad told me when I moved here, he says, "I don't care what you do, Wayne." And in fact, little did I know, Sam, he was actually saying, he told me these exact words. He says, "I don't care if you're just the janitor, be the best damn janitor there is, and you'll go places." Little did I know he's prophetically speaking over my life, because a few months later I would actually be working as a custodian at the same courthouse they now call me judge. And so, and I it was a series of events where I just worked, and I never viewed myself as just a janitor. I listened to what my dad told me and said, "Be the best." And so I wasn't just a janitor; I was the best. And my boss used to always come in and say, "Man, these floors are shining like a diamond." And 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 I just, everything in my life, I've just, and the fact that I started out in that role and ended up in the position I am, I have never asked for a promotion. I've never asked for a raise. The only time I asked for anything was when I asked the voters in 2014 to elect me to this position. But that was at the urging of literally hundreds of people for me to run for this position. When we had our kickoff for our election for this position, I had over 1,000 people come there to support me for my initial launch of the campaign. So it was the community wanted me to serve in this role. And I'm saying this is because any of your listeners, any of your viewers, anybody that's had success or failure in your life, you know that your attitude and how you do things, and you're a shining example of that in your story and what you've done, is that it's all about how we view. I never viewed myself in every stage of my life as just this or just that. I was the best, and I always applied myself to be the best. And I think that attitude, and I learned that from my mom and dad. My dad worked two 40-hour-a-week jobs in a creosote plant and a grain elevator.
Wow.
And so the work ethic and the things that that we talk about. And so, yeah, so that, I believe that's the big underlying success, and the fact that God has blessed me in such a huge way.
Well, that's good because you got to have faith, in order to succeed. I mean, I know sometimes people say, "Well, it's all about hard work, it's all about luck," but I mean, I think faith is very important. Judge Rainmack, where were you? Where were you born at? Where you say you moved to Texas,
Yeah, I was born in Wisconsin. I
Wisconsin?
Yeah, lived in Wisconsin next to my grandfather's dairy farm. And so I thought every child got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, did chores, and then went to school, and then come home and did more chores. It was just kind of one of those things. It's something I thought everybody did. And I had a great family, and like every person, we all have stuff and things that happen to us in our life. But I determined early on that rather than being a victim, that I would be victorious in everything I did, and I've done it all to the best of my ability. I want to make my family proud, wanted to make God proud, and just always tried to do it from a level of service.
That's kind of crazy you said that, because yesterday I used that quote. I'm like, stop being a victim and become a victor. You know,
Right.
so
Exactly.
and so it's kind of crazy that you said that same thing. It's one of my mostly common. I use that a lot. I don't know who did I hear that or where did I hear that at, but I always tell people, I'm like, your life will change, when you stop being a victim and be victorious and be a victor, and things happen because you kind of manifest it. I mean, it's all about how you surround yourself, your mindset. Um, I was talking to somebody in my church group this morning. We had a WhatsApp group, and I was they're having this step challenge, right? And I told him, I said, hey, I said, I invite all of you and challenge you for a 24-hour fast. And there was a couple of them real fast. They're like, we can't do that. We can't do that. I said, no, 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 no. Don't say you can't do that. Tell me you won't do that, because you can do whatever you want to. Nothing is impossible. Yeah, well, besides
Exactly.
besides playing basketball like Michael Jordan, I said, now if God did not give you that ability or the physique or the physical appearance, then yes, maybe you cannot do it. Maybe you cannot play football like Tom Brady. Maybe you cannot, do lift, 5,000 pounds like the heavy lifters do. But you can do anything you want to, because everything is possible, and it's all about the mindset. So and that's one thing that I like what you said about work ethic. You said your dad had this work ethic where he was working 2 40-hour job, and a lot of people, especially, the age we live in, people don't want to do that. They have, different kind of work ethics. What would you say something about that? uh, you know
So
how can we instill better work ethics in our future generation?
yeah, and I think it's imperative that we instill them, because we're I think some of the issues we're having culturally is the fact that we have so many people that don't understand that freedom's not free, success is not free. People don't understand that we sometimes view failure as the opposite of success, when reality failure is a requirement for success. And you would not be in the position you're in today had you not had the failures that you were able to overcome, that directed you in the way that you were supposed to go. And
Absolutely.
I and one of the reasons I wrote the book that I wrote is I talk about the directed path. We're all on a directed path, and the main thing with a path and a journey is that you got to keep walking. And so we've got to instill in our children, our friends, and our family that no matter what happens, we get knocked down, we get back up. You're only a failure if you don't get back up. As long as you can get back up and keep walking forward, you can accomplish anything. And I think the main thing that people get away from is we get away from the fact that if we hit an obstacle or we have a failure, then we stay down, and we don't go rise above it. We, like you talked about, we choose to be a victim versus a victor. And in my courtroom all the time, I talk about E plus R equals O. The events in our life, I cannot control some of the events that happened in my life. I had some terrible things happen to me when I was a child that should never happen to any child. But I determined my response to that event was going to determine the outcome. I was 12 years ago this December, I was given a terminal diagnosis of cancer at MD Anderson. They told me no remission, no cure. The best I could hope for is that I would be in a controlled state or uncontrolled state. And I just needed to accept that they would never tell me I was cured or never was in remission. I looked at the doctor and I said, Doc, I'm going to do everything you tell me to do. But until I hear from Dr. Jesus, I'm going to beat this thing. And he told me, he said, keep that attitude. There are people that come into this center and they have less cancer than you and they give up and die. And I said, well, I'm not that guy. And so since that moment, I've lived I can tell you right where I was on 59 north, about to get on 610 west, and I prayed the prayer, Lord, I don't know what the future holds. I know you hold the future, but from this moment on, I'm going to live every day about impact. Every day is a gift. So I have, for the last 12 years, have lived every day like I'm dying, and it has given me purpose. It's given me the ability to not be inhibited. I never would have ran for this political office and this elected office had I not um, had that gift that God gave me. I literally got that notice on my 44th birthday, and I went in for a kidney stone. I wasn't even symptomatic. I didn't even know I had cancer, and then to be told that I had an incurable cancer. And so our attitude and what we, and I've had friends die of cancer, and I go to MD Anderson for a regular checkup. And when you go to MD Anderson, you see death in every stage. And so why am I here, and why are one of my very good friends that had cancer not here? Um, all I know is that I today I'm alive, and today I'm going to make a difference. Today I'm going to live with impact.
Love that. Love that. So, and so this was, you got the diagnosis at 44. Is that what you said?
44 years, yes, sir. 44 years old.
Man, that's almost the same age as I am right now. So,
Yep.
um, might need to go get just a routine checkup. But I love that E plus R. So, uh,
Yep.
again, stands for
For the event,
event
you
plus result,
plus your response
response.
equals the outcome. So
Event
if I,
plus response equal outcome.
yes, sir. And I share that with in the courtrooms with the children, the adults that I have here in our courts. Justice courts in Texas are the highest volume courts in Texas, Sam. 90% of Texans that interact with the judicial branch of government happen in a justice or municipal court. And so at this level, we're able to redirect behavior. We can unring some bells when a kid messes up, when there's an assault, family violence, theft, minors in possession of drugs, alcohol, drug paraphernalia, even a DUI for a minor. We can redirect behavior here, and that's what I love about my position. I have been in office 2,382 days today. And in those 2,382 days, I've had over 65,000 criminal misdemeanor citations processed in our courts. I've had over 10,000 civil trials. I just finished a docket today where we had civil trials where folks were trying to evict people or they were suing somebody. And our jurisdictional limits are $20,000. So any case under 20,000 can be heard in our court. And so we get to see thousands of people, and
Mhm.
we get to redirect behavior. We get to bring closure to folks and neighbors. We see we see some pretty bizarre things in this court because it's not a court that requires that you have an attorney. You can hire attorneys, but it's not required that you have attorneys to process a case in our court. It's a people's court. Now it's a
Yeah.
court of law, so it's not like I often say to my plaintiffs and defendants, hey, this is not Judge Judy here. This is a court. This is a court of law. We're going to follow the law here, and we're
Yeah.
not going to commercial break. So stop talking.
Stop talking.
Yeah.
uh, Jen Judy. But so let me ask you, since you said that, since y'all see so many people, I mean, if somebody is watching this or listening to this and like maybe one day I want to be a judge, right? Like Judge Mack, what is something you'll say? What kind of responsibility comes with it?
I will say this to anybody that wants to be a public servant is we have got to get back to, as a nation, electing servant leaders. So a great predictor of the future is your past. So serve your community, step up and serve in roles, and just get stuff done. Make stuff happen.
Make stuff happen.
Okay. All right. I'm afraid my mom will watch this. Otherwise, I would say make shit happen. But my mom might watch it, so but we've got to do that. And if you will do that at every stage in your life, and then the community will come to you and say, hey, this opportunity, this is opening up, and we want you to serve in this role. And so it's very important as a nation that we get back. Our founding fathers, they were servant leaders. They were people that lived in their community, and they wanted, the public wanted them to serve. They would go to the legislature and the different branches of government, and they would serve, and then they would come back to their communities and live. It was never the intention of our founding fathers that our Senate and our congressmen be full time living in Washington D.C. That's part of our problem with all the chaos that we got going on. Is you breed this environment of professional politician versus professional servants. We have got to get back. The hope of our nation, the hope of our community is for servant leaders, whether it's a school board, city council, justice courts, district courts, every position, you elected position you can think of. We've got to get back to electing servant leaders, and as Americans, we get to determine that. We get to determine
Servant leaders versus career politicians.
exactly, and that's the problem with today. Is in our voter apathy. We don't hold elected officials accountable, and that we should do that. I wish every year that we have an election, we would have a record turnout like we've had and that's going to keep people accountable. You're going to see a lot of different things come out of our state legislators, our local races, and our national races, because we've people have gotten a voice, and then that voice is voting, and that's how we determine the destiny of our nation. We have got to vote in servant leaders, people that want to serve and not be served. They want to serve the people, they want to make a difference, and they got to come and live under the same laws that they make us all live under.
And people who are doing it for the community and for the community that they serve versus people who do it for themselves.
Right, exactly. And that's the hope of our nation. So if there's anybody, your viewers, that want to want to serve in public capacity, of being a elected office, we need good men and women of their faith, whatever that faith is, or if their faith is they don't have faith. We need servant leaders, people that have a proven record of making a difference and doing the right thing even when nobody's looking. That's one thing I learned as a custodian, Sam, is that not anybody can be a custodian. People think anybody can be a custodian. It takes somebody with a good work ethic and good work habits, because you got to go in when nobody's looking and do your thing. And it could be just totally messed up. And I could tell you some stories of the stuff and the messes that I've cleaned up in public buildings in Montgomery County that were just disgusting. And I'd come in there and make it look brand new and feel very accomplished and done, and come back the next day and I had to redo it all over again.
Dude, you were telling me before we jumped on this interview that you're gonna write a memoir saying
Yeah,
custodian. Okay, tell.
yeah, yeah. I tell people my memoir is going to be from janitor to judge and all the crap I cleaned up in between.
I would love to read that one. Judge, you started as a night shift janitor, right?
Yes, sir.
31 years ago, and then you ended up becoming a police officer,
Yeah.
and you ended up becoming a judge. And I know there's a whole bunch of other things that happen in the middle. Walk us through.
So I, like I told you, I was never, every position I've held in my adult life, I've never asked for a raise. I've never asked for a promotion. I just did the right thing when nobody was looking, and I worked hard. And so in my career with the county, I started as a night shift custodian, was asked to be a foreman, and then I was asked to be a supervisor, and then I was asked to be the assistant director of the department. And then in 1995, Montgomery County commissioners separated our maintenance department and created a building services division and a maintenance and construction division, and they put me over the building services division. And from 95 until 2014, I served in that role as director of building custodial services and serviced all the county facilities, over 100 facilities, over 3 million square feet, and we had 80 employees and all kinds of things. But I ran it like a business. And the whole reason they separated it was they were going to privatize it. And so they separated the two so they could get a good number. And I said, hey, if you'll let me run this like a business, I'll save the county money. And that's exactly what we did. And we treat our staff as professionals. They weren't just custodians,
Yeah.
they were professionals. And then while I was a director, I tell people I had a midlife crisis and went back to school and went through the police academy and became a commissioned police officer in the state of Texas, and served in the constable's office and was promoted to captain over their reserve unit. I
Wow.
never I never did it full time for pay. I did about 1,000 hours a year for free. There were I had a few paid positions where I could work in a paid position, but most of it was I just did it to do it. And then from there, I went to the Conroe Police Department. I was there for 10 years, and served in their reserve unit commander sergeant over their reserve division. And I served there until I took this position in 2014. And so, yeah, and a lot of things, of course, like you said, a lot of things happen in that time frame. But one of the things I learned is during that time is just, um, you can do anything you set your mind to. That's what's so great about our nation
Yeah.
is you can be a business owner, you can be an entrepreneur, you can rise through the ranks if you work and you work hard. And
Absolutely.
it's also like the sign that you said behind you, right there behind you: stay humble, be kind, and work hard. I
Work
mean,
hard, man.
you can't ever. I tell people you can never um outgive the Lord in helping others, and you can never work too hard.
T-
Life. I was about to say, life is hard if you do it easy. It's easy if you do it hard. Yeah.
that's one thing I said. So I did tell you this morning, when I was telling these people to fast with me, right? And one
Yeah.
of the guys said, "Well, it's too hard." I said, "Well, if you're gonna do all your life, you're gonna do easy things, then at the end of the day, life is gonna become very hard for you."
Absolutely.
And
A lot of
I said,
wisdom there.
"Yeah," I said, "You gotta challenge yourself." And when I never said, "Hey, I'm telling you, this is a challenge." A challenge is something where you make yourself uncomfortable in doing something. It says one day fast is not going to kill you, but I mean, I'm like, it's a challenge. Don't want to do it, don't do it. I mean, but you have to make yourself uncomfortable. If and I like that. If you do easy, what did you say? Say rephrase it again.
So life is hard if you try to do it easy, but it's easy if you try to do it hard.
If you try to do it
And
hard,
give it your best. Give it your best. That's all you have to ever do. That's all our supervisors expect us. It's all that our God expects of us, and our partners and our wives, our children. Just do your best all the time.
no,
It's
no,
like
I know.
telling. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's like telling the truth. If you just always tell the truth, you don't even have to think about what you said.
Exactly. You don't
And
have
if
to
you
worry
al-
about it.
and if you always just work hard, like I said, I've never asked for a promotion. I've never asked for a raise. And I could tell you, when I started out with the county, I was making $14,000 a year. And but in my entire 31 years, not one time have I ever asked for a raise.
That's you know what I can definitely respect you for that. Judge Mack, you have a motto, and your motto is "Let's make a difference every day."
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit. What do you mean by that?
So I told you I'm very, the E plus R equals O. But my children, I made up in my mind something I learned from my parents is watching them and what they did and they served. My dad, like I said, worked 2 40-hour week jobs, overcame alcoholism, just got his uh, I'm sorry, 55-year sobriety chip a couple years ago. And I watched him working 2 jobs, still take the time to sponsor people and help people overcome their addiction. And if anybody had a pass, if anybody had a reason to say, hey, I've got my own problems and I'm working 2 jobs, I watched him make a difference every day. I
Mhm.
watched my mom make a difference every day. And it was the way we were raised. And so when I became adult, I just made that was my life motto: make a difference every day. My goal every day is to wake up and make a difference in somebody's life every day. And I passed it to my children. They heard that every day when they would get up, we go to school, and I'd be driving to school, and I'm saying, I love you, I'm proud of you, and make a difference. They heard that every day of their life. I love you. I'm proud of you. Make a difference. And then I'd pick them up from school. I would say, so what did you do to make a difference today? And I held them accountable. And it'd be something as simple as, well, I held the door for somebody when no one else was doing it. I one of the children forgot to bring their lunch, so I shared my lunch with them. So we created this motto, and it wasn't just something we said, it was something we did. So just like my parents lived it, even though they never said it, they lived it before me. And what a great example watching them live their life. My mom right now is legally blind, and she still 3 days a week goes to the school that she retired from at 79 years old, and she tutors children that are having problems with reading 3 times a week.
Wow.
79 years old, still goes to the school that she retired from to help children. That's the example I've had. My dad's 92, be 93 next month, still goes to Alcohol Anonymous meetings and still helps people that are struggling with their addiction at
Wow.
92 years old. And
Well,
so
I
that's
commend them for that.
that's what make a
That's good.
difference means to the Mack family. That's what it means.
That's love it, love it, love it. So tell me, also your inspirational message is, about overcoming any circumstances, and it's very inspirational. And then you ended up writing this book. Highlight the book for me just a little bit. Quick preview.
So it's called The Directed Path Using God's Compass. And so my faith teaches me that in all my ways, I lean not unto my own understanding. In all my ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct my path. And so the story just kind of talks about my path, my directed path. I don't, it, I don't talk about any of my judicial responsibilities or the fact that I'm a judge in the book. But I just talk about the life lessons that brought me to that point. It's just I've been asked, so how did you get here? And so I have a annual prayer breakfast that I do every year, and a lady came to that, and she noticed the my story, parts of my story, and then she said, hey, you need to write a book. And I'm like, nobody would read a book from from me. She said, no, really. And so she talked me into it. I took me about a year to do it because my job is so busy and so chaotic. But yeah, and it's real simple, easy read.
All right, awesome. And I know your wife, Mrs. Mack, Mindy Mack, she also contributed a chapter in there.
She did. In fact, that's my favorite part of the book. Whenever I'm having a down day or I feel like, it's just getting overwhelming, I read that chapter. I couldn't even tell you how many times I read it, and it inspires me. And
Share with our listeners, what is that? What is that chapter about?
so she calls it, oh, my mind just went blank. You caught me flat-footed. But she talks about, in other words, no matter what, always doing the right thing, no matter what. It's called, the chapter's called No Matter What.
No matter
And
what.
no matter
Okay.
what. And she talks about what she tells it from a perspective, and it was really, and it was something the author, I mean, the publisher that helped me, said, I want people to hear this from your wife's perspective. And I tell you, Sam, the first time I read just the draft, I I I I mean, I just When I say I am blessed with the God gave me a second chance at my life, but when I got a second chance with my wife, that I have somebody that walks side by side with me, that believes in me. And she's a public servant herself. She's got 16 years at the Conroe Police Department as a communication officer. She's going to school full time right now and is going to graduate in May with her bachelor's in elementary education. And when she retires from the police department, wants to be an elementary school teacher.
Wow.
And yeah, so yeah, I am very blessed. I won the lottery with my
You
wife.
won the lottery over there with
Won the
Miss
one.
Mindy.
That's
So
right.
she wrote, and it's a good principle to live by. No matter what, do the
No
right
matter
thing.
what.
Yeah,
Yep.
no matter what. I mean,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter
Yep.
what are you doing, and I mean, because I mean, if I mean, there's one thing like I always say, giving is everything, right? And it doesn't matter what you do or what you have. I mean, and I just kind of reminded me, I like listening to Tony Robbins here and there, and I do,
Yeah.
and he talks about he this one. It just reminded me about this, that he talked about this one time that he only had $17 left, and he didn't know how his next meal was going to come, and he went to this buffet place so he can load up. And after eating the buffet, he had $17 left, and he was leaving, and he see this little kid who had come with his mom on a date, and he was wearing a bow tie and acting very gentleman-like. And he comes over there, and he goes to the little kid, and he talks to the little kid, and he's like, "Man, who's your date?" And he's like, "That's my mom." He's like, "I see you on a date, blah blah blah." And he takes his $17, the last $17, not knowing where his next meal is going to come from, gives it to the kid and say, "Hey, this is my part for your date." And he
Wow.
leaves, and he leaves. And the next day, uh the universe works in mysterious ways. And I'll say universe, God, everybody works in mysterious ways. And this guy that who owed him $1,000, that had stopped communication with him, was there with $1,000 check plus interest.
Wow.
And when he didn't know, and so Tony had talked about how he has made his life mission to give, and no matter what, it doesn't matter. That's what it kind of reminded me. No matter what, he didn't
Yep.
know where his next meal was going to come from, but no matter what, he wanted to do something good for somebody. And it's always, to do the right thing is always good, no matter what. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're going to lose money doing it. It doesn't matter if you're going to spend time doing it. It doesn't matter if you see somebody on the side of the street stuck with that flat tire, and no matter what, it is going to take time or it's going to get you dirty. Just do the right thing. And if we all
Absolutely.
do the right thing, no matter what, we'll be a great nation. We'll be a great
It
world.
is. It is. And it speaks to, again, a principle that I've used, that this is a law that no judge, presidential pardon, a $10,000 an hour attorney, it's a law that no one can get out from under, and it is the law of the harvest. You reap what you sow. If you will plant good seed, it's always going to come back.
Yeah.
And if we look back in our lives when we've had some of our failures and catastrophic failures, it always comes down to what kind of seed we were planting. You speak life or you speak death in your mouth. And what you said right there about Tony Robbins, and we got to pour into ourselves. I'm an avid reader. One of the, next to the Bible, one of the things that I read in 1995 was Seven Habits of Highly Successful People.
Yeah.
And I read it, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it. And that book talks about, if we'll just do the right thing, those seven habits of highly effective people. And number one in every one of those habits is giving to others, being a blessing, doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking. And what you say is so powerful and so true, Sam. It just
Seven
and
Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen
yeah,
Covey.
Stephen Covey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, great, great book. I have young people come into my court and they say, I want to do this, that, this. I said, read this book and let's talk about it. And then another great book that me and my family have gone through 3 times now is called Leadership and Self-Deception. And anybody that has an organization, anybody that works in an organization, anybody that's in leadership, a business owner, should read this book. And my copy is so bird dogged up on the sides of it because I've highlighted it and gone through it. And my family and I've gone through that. I've personally gone through it 3 times. Me and my family have gone through it twice. Here at our office with my staff, we've gone through it once together. And and you got to pour into yourself. And it's one of those things that the book talks about. That book talks about we all have a problem, and that problem is self-deception. At the core of everything has to do with self-deception, and leaders need to understand that principle. And it's just a remarkable, again, law of the harvest. If you plant good seed, good things happen.
And who wrote this book?
So the book is actually done by an institute, and if your viewers will just Google leadership and self-deception, Amazon. I always buy the big print version because it's cheaper, but also you can write in it. Um, and I forget the name of the institute. It's Arbinger Institute, or it's done by a leadership institute, but
Uh,
leadership and self-deception.
Got you. Judge Mack, your book, The Directive Path Using God's Way. How can people find that book?
Well, I like we talked about early on. I can't really talk about that,
Okay.
but I'll
But
I'll
but
be
but
happy.
but people can Google it, right? The Directive
Yeah,
Path Using God's Way. So hey,
yeah,
listen, if any one of y'all is listening, Google it. Judge can't talk about it, but you can Google it. Directive Path Using God's Way. And I'm very interested in reading it, and especially I'm interested in reading Miss Mindy's chapter. Um,
yeah,
Judge, there are some people who are good readers. Some of us, like me, that try to read, and sometimes it becomes hard. I've read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, so I know that book. And I've tried a couple of other people's book, and sometimes it becomes a challenge. But when the book is interesting, and it talks to you, it's easy to read it. Uh,
yeah.
doesn't matter if you're one of those guys who have that short attention span or not.
And
So
and I used to in school I was always put in the special reading classes and stuff like this. And so I I've gotten used to reading in hand, but also something I've started doing because of time is the audiobooks.
yeah,
I mean, as much time as we travel, we go through places and you can listen to audiobooks. It's another great opportunity. You're still planting that seed, pouring into yourself.
you got to plant those seeds. You got to plant those positive seeds, and
Yep.
one of them is by listening. I mean, you're listening podcasts, listening positive message how you have been putting in, and listening to reading books, listening to books. Uh, people understand that the justice of the peace court is really really busy, like you said earlier, but in small counties in Texas, there's not medical examiners. You also serve as a coroner, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So there are 254 counties in Texas, and only 16 of those county have medical examiners offices. So yes, I am also the coroner. To date, I've done 1,805 inquests to date, and so we have to any suspicious death, suicide, homicide, natural deaths at home where there's not a doctor, or even if there is a doctor and at the hospital. Now, in our county, we're fortunate. We have 3 forensic pathologists. We have a Montgomery County Forensic Services Department that work under our authority, and then also 3 death investigators. So we're very, very busy, but we couldn't do all that we do without that Montgomery County Forensic Services Department. And we'll eventually get in a medical examiner's office. It's just a cost thing, and you have by law, any county over 2 million population have to have a medical examiner's offices. So all those offices that in those counties that have them are metropolitan areas of Texas. But most of your urban areas and small counties, yeah, we do that in addition. So I'm on call 24/7. And
Well, I see Montgomery County having one really soon because the way it's growing,
yes,
it's
sir.
it's crazy. Because I mean, I think I read somewhere Conroe was one of the fastest growing cities.
It is.
I think it was like
Yeah.
one of the top 15 or top 20 fastest growing cities in the United States. Is that
And it's
correct?
in well, actually, in our population range, we've been number one the last 3 years in a row, fastest growing here in
Fastest growing.
Conroe. It's crazy the growth around here. Yeah,
And then and Magnolia, which does that fall in yours too?
that is in our county, but that is Judge Masden is the JP out there. They divide. We have five justice courts in our county. My
Okay.
I the reason I have two offices in Willis and Montgomery is because my precinct is the entire upper half of Montgomery County. So I actually have two offices that I go between.
Got you. So, but that is also the same county that you are in. But
Yes,
that
sir.
whole Montgomery County is exploding.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Why do you think so?
I think it has to do with leadership in our community that's been inviting to bringing businesses here. And you've got the Woodlands township down there, and it's it's like a city, but it's an unincorporated area. It's a township,
Mhm.
and the school districts that are here, and the faith community that's here, the lake that's here. There's a lot of great amenities. We have a tremendous group of elected officials up here that are servant leaders that that keep our taxes low, and they do tax incentives to get businesses to come here. Our Montgomery County Commissioners Court has done a great job over the years of attracting people to come here. And Our airport that we have here, it's just it's a recreational area, but it's just they're great people up here. And you and I talked about the show about the task force that we started a year and a half ago.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. Is that the mental health and suicide?
Yeah,
Uh,
so of course in my duties as a justice of the peace, I realized early on when we got, and this is, we've been very positive up to this point, and so this is kind of heavy what I'm about to say, but one of the first things I realized in our county when I was became the justice of the peace is we have a lot of suicides in our community. And then as I started looking at it, it's the 10th leading cause of death in our nation is suicide, but for age groups 10 to 35, it's the second leading cause of death
wow.
for ages 10 to 35. It kills more young people than cancer. And
Wow.
so we for years I've been calling, hey, we need to have a task force. We need to figure out what is going on. Why is this happening? And so I spoke at a Woodlands Township board meeting, updating them on what was happening in our community. And from there, the Houston Chronicle, Jeff Ford, a reporter there, did an article about my talk. And I within 3 days of that article, Sam, I had three people, or within 3 days, I had 10 agencies say, "Hey, we want to be a part of your task force." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm, I'm just saying we need one. I'm, I'm not. I don't have a task force. I just said we need one." Within 7 days, we had 20 agencies contact me and say, "Hey, we want to be a part of your task force." And so, so sometimes God's got to knock you in the head before you go, "Oh, okay, yeah, you've been saying we need this, so now you got people to do it. Let's do it." So we can collaborate with Conroe Independent School District, Texas Children's Hospital, Tri County Behavioral Health, all kinds of nonprofits, the faith community, and we had a year ago in May we had our first task force ask meeting where we asked, "Hey, join our task force." And we had 461 people, standing room only, show up. And we had every school district, first time in the history of our county, we had every school district, every hospital, lawyers, law enforcement, um, the faith community, counselors, professional counselors, all come together to say, yes, we need to do this. And from that task force, we formed 14 work groups. And so we've got adult suicide, pediatric suicide, veterans, first responders, intellectual disabilities. We broke down all these work groups, and we're looking at what the safety net is. We know we have we know we have a suicide behavioral health problem, and we have resources. And what this task force has done is built a bridge to link those together. And we just had our community help expo last week. Had 300 people register, and we had a great speakers, and we're going forward with this, putting light on the darkness and the stigma. You know, we people don't have any problem listening to me about my cancer story, but when you start talking about suicide, you start talking about mental health, there's a stigma that goes with that. And what this task force is doing is we're trying to pull down the stigma of that, and we're trying to put light on this very dark and hard subject. And anytime you put light on something, guess what happens? Darkness has to leave, and that's what this task force is doing.
Got you. I mean, that's awesome. So, um, I mean, I just hope that the darkness will go away. It is something, mental health, the suicide, the depression is something that a lot of people don't know, and I'm glad that y'all are shedding light over there in
Thank you.
Montgomery County. You also you are also available to speak. At retreats, churches, mosques, temples, synagogue. You don't mind where it's at, because and I honestly think that's a great thing, because in the short time that we have, you have said some great uplifting things that I've loved, and I'm like, can anyone call you for booking, or they can
Yeah,
contact you? Okay, where can
yeah.
they find you, Judge Mack?
So the easiest thing to do is for speaking is to reach out to my office, and they can appropriately direct them to where that needs to happen. If it's on a professional level, or if it's a conference of some kind, and they can reach out to me, and in my role as the justice of the peace and so forth. I'm happy to go anywhere.
They
And
you're now you what social medias do you use?
I use Facebook. You got the Judge
LinkedIn?
Wayne L. LinkedIn, Judge Wayne L. Mack Facebook page, LinkedIn, Judge Wayne L. Mack, Instagram, all those mediums they can reach out to me on,
All right,
and
perfect. So
and just
Judge Wayne Mack on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, they can find you over there, and
yes, sir.
and if they need to talk to you, or figure it out something, they can always do that.
Yeah,
Your book again is the directive path using God's way.
you
Also,
actually, it's actually using God's compass.
oh, using
Yeah,
God's compass. I'm sorry,
yeah,
using God's
yeah, yeah,
compass. Right,
yeah.
right.
Directed. Yeah,
Uh, Judge Mack, we are getting towards the end of the show, and every time I do this with all the guests, right? Let's just say you wrote several books, memoirs, did a lot of videos, did everything, but it's the end of it's your end in this world, and you are about to go join your creator, go to the next world, right? And someone says, Judge, I'm sorry everything got erased, but you're about to go. But here goes a pen and a paper. And I want you to write three things in there. And these three things can be anything for your grandkids, your future generation, your rest of your world, the world, right? The future world. And it's something how to live life, how to lead life, how a person should be, and what they should do. Three things that you would write on that paper. What will they be?
so I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, and this has guided my life. So lean not unto your own understanding. In other words, don't look at the circumstance or the situation. Look at your purpose. Don't lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways, in everything you do, acknowledge God and the good things in life. And the third thing is, when you do those things, He shall direct your path. When you do those things, your path will be directed. You'll never have to worry about going the wrong way. If you will just not make it about you, make it about everybody else, and your path will be directed. The most miserable people in the world, Sam, are the people that are, instead of being a raging river of faith, purpose, power, and God's plan, they become a swamp or a pond, because they take in, and they don't give out. And we should always give. And the people that are the most miserable in the world, even struggling with mental health, behavioral health, are people that don't know how to give. They don't know how to let it go out. And if we will do that, and this is 3 things, and I'm sorry I didn't break down the bullet points here. I'm kind of going on, but the principle is give, and then when you can't give anymore, give some more. And when you do that, it comes back to you. You can't even measure it. You cannot even measure it. You doing what you're doing with this show, and showcasing. I've watched some of your guests. What great value you're giving to people by giving this. And you're a successful businessman and entrepreneur. You don't have to take the time out of your day to do this, but you do it.
Thank you.
And you're making things happen. You're going to inspire other people. Hey, I could do that. I have a story to tell. There are people that are going to watch this podcast that may not even think they ever had a story, but if they'll just kind of think back to what they've done in their life, they could be a blessing to somebody by giving that story, by saying that. So I'm sorry for a long answer to your short
No,
question.
absolutely. Judge, a couple of questions, and I know you're a busy man, and I'll let you go. What is your definition of love?
The definition of love is the unconditional act of serving someone else and not yourself. That's true love.
Of serving someone else and not yourself.
That's right. That's true love.
Don't worry about what you're feeling. Serve that other person.
Yeah, every major religion, and my major in college was theology, so I've looked at all the major isms, and I have a chaplaincy program up here that includes every mosque, every synagogue, every temple, every church you could imagine is represented in my chaplaincy program because of the inquest duties I do. And studying those religions, every one of those religions have a common theme: loving others as you love yourself. Loving others as you love yourself. And a lot of our problem in America, Sam, is we don't love ourselves. So how can we love other people?
Yeah,
We
our
got to get
tank is
we got
empty ourselves.
Exactly. Again, it goes back to giving. It goes back to, you got to give to yourself in love and forgiveness and restoration, and then you can give that gift away to others.
The guest before you, her name is Monica Gomez. She was on episode number 98, and she discussed about that. The same thing what you said. You cannot love others when you don't love yourself. If you're, and she said it's like a tank of love. Love is like a tank. If your tank is empty, how can you give it to anybody else?
Absolutely. Yeah. You
So
can't
so
get
you
you Yeah, that's awesome, because you can't give something away you don't have.
yeah, you
And
can't give
that's
somebody
and
else,
yeah.
you know. One last one. You defined love already. Define what is your definition of humility? Is it important, and why is it important?
So that speaks to character. I'll never forget. I had a Sunday school teacher one time. Great guy. But he stood up and was, in from a scriptural standpoint, was talking about being humble. And he gets up and says, "I want to thank God I'm humble." and and I'm like, what? And we all kind of chuckled, because we thought it was funny what he was saying, but really his life, he was a very humble person. He never desired to be in the spotlight. He never did so. Humility is doing the right thing even when nobody's looking, and not looking for somebody to pat you on the back. I moved to Texas in 1985 with $500 that I borrowed from my grandma, a Ford Escort that didn't have air conditioning, and everything I owned, with the wisdom that my dad said, "I don't care if you're just the janitor, be the best damn janitor there is, and you're going to go places." and I've always been in a place of service my entire adult life, and I'm a living example of what you can do if you just do the right thing when nobody's looking. Period.
Judge Mack, I can probably keep going on and on. I love this episode. I love your message. I love what you had to say. You know, such an inspirational person. I hope in future I can get you back on maybe in about 6 months to a year. And I hope you accept my invitation at that time too.
I would
Would
love
like to
to.
check back with you soon and see how things are going. Judge Mack, what is the next goal for you? What is
So
next?
so the same goal that I've had every day for since uh, my 44th birthday. My next goal is to make a difference. I'm gonna disconnect from this call. I have a meeting with a family that's in a terrible
Now we're
situation,
we're done over here. So well,
and
that's good, Judge Mack.
yeah,
I will. I know you're a busy guy, and I'll see you
thank you,
soon. I hope I'll check back with you in soon. Thank you so much for being
thank
on
you,
Make Shit Happen episode number 100.
thank you.
Thank you.